welcome to Kickback with Chris, Martial Arts Podcast. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kickback with Chris. Hope you've all had a great week. Another flyby for me. It's gone so quickly. I think it's the situation of spinning all these plates with the podcasting and the online courses and running my school and other bits that I've got going on in the minute. These weeks just seem to be flying by at an increasing pace, as do the years, which is really quite worrying. But anyway, today we are going to be speaking to Mr. Neil Kirkland of the Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland Association. They are a group that are dedicated to raising awareness and to promote the inclusion of people of all types of disability within the martial arts, which is a fantastic cause and something that I'm really keen to speak to Neil about. In other news, I suppose, I'm sure many of you have seen the conversations or debates, sometimes even arguments, that I have a tendency to get myself into on social media a little bit. It's always for the passion of martial arts, and it's always with a positive reason at heart, although sometimes I guess the conversations don't always end up with that sort of tone. So there was one conversation that I had, it's actually at the beginning of the year, and it was on the rise of the martial arts consultants again. I say again because this is something that I witnessed and was involved with, not as a consultant but as somebody who was using them in the sort of early to mid 2000s. So I've been teaching full time now since the late 90s, and when I first opened my own school, which was sort of in the early 2000s, I did use some consultancy groups. So I've had first-hand experience, some good, a lot bad, using these consultancy groups. And before we go any further, I think it is important to point out that not all martial arts consultants are bad. And even of the ones that I worked with that were, I don't know if shady is the right descriptive, but let's say that they didn't really have my school or its growth or sustainability as their number one priority. Some of the advice that they gave was actually good, but a lot of it wasn't, and I just want to discuss that a little bit. As I said at the outset of this podcast, I do want to have these sort of challenging discussions and not sort of skirt around them. So the rise of the consultants, originally, I didn't really realise it was something that was happening, because I just sort of, it was just it was what was going on when I opened my school. I didn't really realise that it was sort of a new thing. It was just there. And as I say, I did use them. Experiences that I had, they kind of appeared and disappeared quite a lot. And at the time, I didn't really understand what that was about. But obviously, since then, I've gone on to through running my own school and seeing where some of these people have gone. It does make me realise, or I believe has helped me to realise what their motives were, and it's allowed me to potentially spot some of the warning signs with people that are popping up now. Now, something I would advise anybody is just look into the history of the person that is promoting themselves as a consultant. What is their history with their school? Have they suddenly sort of popped up from nowhere? That's a really big one. If they have, then you might want to be a little bit careful with the advice that you're taking from them. It might be advice that's actually very new to them, and they're simply passing it on very quickly without any longer term experience in this information to back up what they're saying. Are they expecting you to make massive change to everything that you do? And are you finding that there is a little bit of a push on you, a gentle nudge that becomes quite a hefty shove to start doing everything in line with what their school or their brand does? If this is happening, then again, I would be careful. I would be really careful. As an example, one of the consultancy groups that I worked with in my early 20s, they were leaning really quite heavily on me to start using their branding, and I did, quite naively really, And this group didn't last much more than probably 12 months, which ended up with me having sort of not rebranded, but sort of adopted the branding of this group, which was then completely useless to me because the person and the consultancy group just cleared off. And I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen to everybody that rebrands and sort of adopts things from consultancy groups, franchises, etc. But you do want to be aware of that before you commit to anything, because there's a possibility that could happen. And have a think about what is their ultimate goal. Of the 4 consultancy groups that I used, 3 of them vanished, and of the 3 that vanished, 2 of them sold their schools. So what does that tell me about the advice that they were giving me with regards to the longevity of my school? Were they providing me with quick fixes to put money in their pockets, to make me think, wow, look at how well my school is doing, I should spend more money on going on courses that they're providing so I can run my school like them? Because ultimately their end goal seemingly wasn't to have a long-term sustainable school. And if it was, then clearly that advice wasn't any good, because their schools ended up closing. So you've got to be really, really careful on that one. If it doesn't feel right, likelihood is it isn't. If it's clear that they're pushing for short-term goals and gains rather than your long-term future, then you probably don't want to be following their advice. Now, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers and might annoy some people as well, but obviously I'm not naming any names. If you're a consultant out there and you're listening to this, great. Get on and do what you're doing, but just be aware that people are becoming clued up on the tactics that some of these consultants have, that their longer term goal isn't to remain a consultant, they want to go on to do other things, and in that respect sometimes you have to be a little bit careful. You're not putting money in their pockets to sort of aid their end goal rather than to help yours, so to speak. Anyway, moving on. Now, another thing that we have introduced this week is a new question of the week section. And the very first question that came in, and I decided to do this one, was from Duncan on Facebook, who asked, what is your goal when studying and training martial arts? So, right, for me personally, this one has changed several times over the years. I originally started out when I was a child. I wanted to do all the cool stuff that the instructor was and the senior instructors were doing. They were breaking wood and sparring and flying around the room, and it looks really cool. And I want to be able to do that cool stuff that I'd seen people doing in the movies. That was my my ultimate goal, I suppose. As I got older, then my focus switched more to the sparring side, and that kept me interested. And not initially, I was terrified of sparring initially, but eventually it was the sparring that kind of got me hooked. That made me want to keep going back. And then I went on to forms on competition, and I was interested in competing and performing at events. And so over the years, it's changed. I wouldn't say it's one thing. I know for some people it is, and they keep to that one reason all the time, or that end goal, should we say. Right now, my focus is on keeping myself in the best shape possible, to be able to teach my students, to be in a position to be able to defend my family should I need to keep myself healthy as I'm getting a little bit older, and at the same time keep myself in shape for any sort of film or performance roles that come up. So I suppose the goal for me anyway is constantly shifting. It's not a stationary goal. It's changed through the years as I've got older, and as my sort of martial arts journey has changed. I hope that answers your question. If anybody else has an an answer or any thoughts on that same question, then please do get in touch, and I will by all means cover them in the show. This question of the week section now will be a regular slot going forwards, so get those questions in. Obviously, the more questions I get in, I can stockpile them, and then I can pick in and use them each week. So, moving on to our interview with Mr. Neil Kirkland of Adaptive Martial Arts. I've really been looking forward to this one, actually. So we will now get on to Neil after this short break.
You're listening to Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast, brought to you by www.onlinekicking.co.uk.
Okay, so live on the phone now, we have Mr. Neil Kirkland from the Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland group. How are we today, sir?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Yeah, very good.
Fantastic. Now, before we go any further, what I'll actually say, although I have spoken to you before and you were on my list, I actually spoke to the legend that is Tony Pillage not too long ago, and he suggested that I get in touch with you to do this interview. So here we are. So you can't say that I don't listen to people and take people's advice. So
it's lovely to be on here.
It is. Now, what I like to do when we have I first have people on, it's just to go right back to the start, so I can learn a little bit, and so the listeners can learn a little bit as well. When did you first get into martial arts, and what sort of prompted that?
1979, a long time ago, and I started off with Shotokan. Not many clubs about in those days, and it was a tiny little club, and basically, a story that many people here will appreciate was, I was a kid at school. I was bullied. I walked with a limp. 1979, we weren't quite as politically correct as we are today. So yeah, I was bullied at school, and my mum said, "You got two choices: you live with it, or you do something about it." So it was the era of Bruce Lee was still very much in people's minds, and so we looked for a club, and I can't. Do you know what? It's really bad, but I can't even remember the guy's name, because I was there for about 2 years, and but it was a tiny little club, and they were probably in those days the guy was a first dan, and then his students, he had about 3 or 4 other students, and they were all sort of brown belts and purple belts. So I came along as a beginner, and it was just like, wow, and I just fell in love with it then. So that was the beginning, and then I went off. So that little club closed down, and then I went off and trained with a guy called Pat O'Keefe, who is, funnily enough, coming to visit us next week to do a seminar. And he was amazing. He never gave any quarter, although he knew I was disabled. He never gave any quarter to that. And it's something that I've, in my studies and in my teaching now, it's not the height of the bar, it's how you get over it. And that's what I work with now. So, yeah, he was a big influence on me. So, And so trained with him for about 4 or 5 years. And then I went off and I ran pubs and bits and bobs. And then I met, about 20 odd years ago, I met a guy called Robbie Woodard, who not many people have heard of. He's kind of... he's lived in the shadows, so to speak, but he was one of Sensei Anoida's students, and he's just a phenomenal martial artist, just phenomenal. He went off and did some stuff with Bill Newman. He's a screamer, and he was another guy who just was, do what you can, do what you do, and I learned a lot from him. And then about 10 years ago, I went and studied Wing Chun. Wow. So, just... my leg had got a bit worse. I couldn't really kick much anymore. I can still do a little bit, and it's just suited, and I wanted to get a bit more technical with my arts, and Wing Chun seemed to fit the bill. So I went to guys at Cambridge Kung Fu and trained with them till I got my, what they call a TG, a technical grade, which is like first dan, I suppose, with them. But just a bit of a varied mix, but just always, I love learning, so it's all good, and that's where we were. That was the kind of journey.
So that's very much the journey so far. It's be work in progress, to be continued.
Always. Every day's a school day.
Absolutely.
I love learning, and now with what I do, I feel I have to keep learning, because with my students, because of the various disabilities that they have, whether it's cognitive or physical or even emotional, different techniques work better with some. And so, every day I think, oh, how am I going to do that? Or, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love to learn and love, just picking up new ideas and things from people. So there you go.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm at.
Fantastic. I can, and with regards to you can't remember the name of the instructor, I can completely empathise with that, because most days I can't even remember what I've had for breakfast. So the fact that you can't remember...
He's like 40
exactly.
years ago, man.
And no one's going to judge you on that one at all.
I think his name was Phil. Funny name is... But I mean, I was a young boy. I only ever called him Sensei, so
yes.
I could be forgiven for not remembering his actual name.
That's true, actually, yeah. I had that was similar when I was at... the really odd thing about when I was first training, I went to it was a similar sort of setup. It was a very, very traditional school. There was 20 students when I started and 20 students when the club closed. It was the same people. Hundreds came, but everybody was like, they're all crazy. What are they doing? Yeah. And they left. And we never used names. But what was really odd was, and bearing in mind I was only a kid, I was 7, 8 years old, and so this guy was like, it was on another level in my from my point of view. He was actually still at school. He was at high school.
Really?
Yeah, he was a senior in high school. His dad was helping him run the club. I mean, again, this is in the 80s, so nobody really questioned a 17-year-old teaching classes and stuff. But I remember when I went up to high school, I can't remember how old I would have been, but he wasn't there, but he was still sort of on the peripheral, because there was people still at school that he was friends with, and I saw him, and I was like, there's all these people calling him Dean. They're using his name, and it was really weird. So I think the only reason I actually know his name is through friends at school.
Right.
It's bizarre. When did you first get into teaching then? What prompted that?
It's probably about 10 years ago.
Right.
And I'd never had any real desire to teach. I regret that now. I do regret that now. But I'd never really. And then when I was training with Cambridge Kung Fu, as I said, doing the Wing Chun, they had lots of kids classes, and my two were little, and they wanted to join, and so I ended up teaching some of their kids' classes, and that was how I kind of got into that. And then the whole sort of adaptive thing came about because just after, let me think, 2012, it was the Olympics.
Right.
They Cambridge City Council came and said, we want you to run a course for young people with disabilities over the summer holidays. So it was just like one day a week, and the guys at Cambridge Kung Fu, Ross and Cole, came to me and said, Neil, we reckon this is your sort of thing. Would you? And I did. So we went off and did it, and it was amazing. It was like it was a real light bulb moment for me, because I suddenly saw that actually we could make a huge difference, and so we were running this course, and it was like an hour on a Sunday afternoon, and these guys came along and we did some stuff, and it was brilliant. And then we were about 3-4 weeks into it, and one of the mums came up to me and said, this is great. This is, the kids are loving it. They're really having a good time. But what happens now? And it was a question that I wasn't prepared for, to be honest. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, the kids are loving it, but in 2-3 weeks' time, this ends, and there's nowhere for them to go. And I was like, you're right, because although, when we talk about people with disabilities, obviously, our first thing is to inclusion. We want to have inclusion, get them into classes, but sometimes some children and some adults, it's not possible. They need a class or an environment where they can learn, where they can do it at their pace and with their abilities. So I went back to the guys at Cambridge Kung Fu and I said, this is what's happening. I said, can we do an exclusive class, if you like. And they went, yeah, go with it, Neil. So they let me run with that ball. And we came up with this class called the Snow Leopards, which was, and it was phenomenal. It was just, all of a sudden, we were doing what, my dream, if you like, was this class that we were teaching. It was only for children, but we were teaching children with, quite severe disabilities, martial arts. And it was great. And, that's when I then went, well, I think we should have an association. So I formed Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland. And that was the beginning of this chapter, if you like, that back then. So, yeah.
And obviously through starting the club and through its time that it's been running now, what sort of benefits have you seen for the kids that are involved?
Well, with the kids, just, for example, I'll give you an example, was there was a young girl who trained with them who had cerebral palsy. Yeah. And, very limited movement, very, balance problems, all sorts of just physical difficulties that are associated with cerebral palsy. Yeah. And I don't teach that class anymore, but I sometimes pop along just to have a watch and, see how they're getting on. And I saw her the other day and she was jumping over a hurdle, not like a big hurdle, but actually over a little, step over sort of hurdle. But she jumped over it. And I was like, actually, she hasn't won any world titles, or she hasn't, but actually that's huge. That's more, and it was just beautiful to watch, that actually this young girl is now, really, her movements are way better, her balance is better, and her confidence in herself has just changed, and it is great, just to see it. Those little, what we would think of as a little thing, to her is huge. So.
Yeah, it's one of the really cool things about martial arts is its ability to impact people with all different issues in life, but it's that fantastic tool, and it's a really good. What I like as well, it's a fantastic leveler as well. You can have a class running, and you can look around the class, and you can see all these different people. All with different things going on in their lives, but it brings everybody together. It sort of unifies them, and it levels it off. It's absolutely fantastic. So it's really cool to hear. I love, personally, I love it when I hear stories like this, because it's something we need to hear of more. If I personally,
definitely, and it just I think martial arts, it's, as you said, it's a great leveler, but also it's an empowerer. And I want these children to be empowered. I want them to have their own voice, their own, the reason we called that class the Snow Leopards was because snow leopards are actually the one big cat that can't roar, which is a final, sort of a random fact. But it kind of fitted, because a lot of these children and a lot of these young adults and a lot of these adults with disabilities don't have a voice, or that people go, oh, actually, let's get them involved in that, because people look at martial arts sometimes and go, oh, they can't do that. Well, yeah, they can. It just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of patience and a little bit of passion for people to get, these guys involved. So
it's exactly that is exactly the same point that I was chatting with Paulie about with his group Fight for Autism. The same thing, it just takes a little bit of, we just have to just look at it and go, rather than saying no, we can't, is go, well, what can we do to make it a yes? And it starts from that point, and it grows from there, doesn't it? So it's absolutely fantastic. So you've just there briefly mentioned your association, Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and the sort of the goals you have for it and what's going on?
It started off as what I wanted it to be was a place where clubs could go and say, a guy, girl, whoever has turned up, and we're not sure how to do this, and that's fine. We've all been in that situation teaching where we go, oh, do you know what? I don't really know what I'm I'm not sure how to deal with this. So I wanted to be a reference point, and I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but because I haven't. But what I wanted to get, and this is part of the reason we did this cornerstone thing recently, is that I wanted a group of people around us that have got far more experience and far more knowledge than I ever have, that we could go to and go, look, Joe in Aberystwyth has got a club and he's got a young lady turned up with, we'll use cerebral palsy as an example. And he's not sure because her balance is poor or whatever reason it is. It doesn't have to. Has anybody got any advice, any ideas, and then be a support for that club. But I also wanted it to be an association where people with disabilities could go, all right, I live in Colchester. There's a club there that is associated with Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland. They will open their doors and welcome me. And that's the biggest point, was that I think a lot of people with disabilities are not scared maybe, but wary of going, because they're like, oh, will I be accepted? Will I be able to do anything? And I wanted a sort of, not a beacon, that sounds very pretentious, but I wanted clubs to be able to go, yeah, we're part of that. We will do our level best to include that person and get them some training. And that was the simple thing. That was it. And now we've got classes. We've got a class in Cambridge for adults. We're starting a new class for children. And these are, we're just getting there. The momentum has started. It's really started now. We've sort of plodded along for a few years, but the momentum's really starting to kick in now, and it's great. It's great to see.
And and what's really cool as well is just having a quick click around. And obviously, I know a little bit as well from the chats we've had and from the events I've been at. But just looking through the Facebook group now, the breadth of knowledge and experience from the different instructors that have got involved is huge. I mean, there are people from all walks of martial arts and self-defense, and which is really cool to see, because they bring with them their knowledge as well to add to the pool. And I think this, over time, as you say, this is starting to get traction now, and people are getting involved. And anybody listening, I would encourage you to go and have a look, whether you're a student or an instructor. Go and check out their Facebook group and have a good, take a moment to look over the things that they're doing in the videos, because it's fantastic stuff. And
thank you.
It's something that I put. This is the conversation that we've had briefly already, but this is something that I would really like to get involved with as well, because it's
I do believe, Chris, we did talk about you coming and doing a seminar for me, didn't you?
Absolutely, we did.
That's one thing we did. We did that a lot of groups haven't done, is that we got names, if you like, from the martial arts world and said, will you come and do a seminar for us? But the rules are, I don't care who you are, you can be anybody up there, but it has to be inclusive. And touch wood, so far nobody's gone, oh, I can't do that. So we've had some big names. We've had Bill Wallace, we've had Mr. Pillage, we've had Tony Baker, we've had lots of big names over. Master Wong came over, really good, and it's been a great journey.
And I would imagine it's been a learning experience for those instructors as well, because the names you've named, they're all pretty humble people, and I'm sure some of them have come to you, and I haven't spoken to any of them to be able to corroborate this, but I'm guessing that some of them probably said, I actually got a lot out of that as well personally. I've learned a lot about myself, and I can actually I could do more of this. Is that right?
I think as you said, the guys that have come along are one, they're great martial artists, but two, they are very humble people. And every one of them has come away going, you know what, that was a great experience. And I think you've got to learn from it. You've got to, I mean, the one thing that when I set all these, things in place, was that everything had to have integrity. It had to have, I didn't want people to go, oh, Joe's just got his yellow belt because he's disabled, so they've gone, oh, have it. Here, every one of my students has to work for it. And I don't, when I grade, for example, I don't just do it. I get a panel of, people like Brian Jones, and I get Robbie Woodard in, and I get, these other people in to go, actually, given, this person's abilities, and have they worked, and are they at the place they should be to be a yellow belt? So that I know that when my students go off to do seminars in clubs that are, or whatever we do, people will actually go, yeah, he is a yellow belt. He's a yellow belt through his hard work and his dedication and everything else that we associate with martial arts anyway. And that's where I was, it had to have it. I didn't want it just to be a sort of give me, or, this is the disabled group, or look, so that was important. And I think with these guys doing these big seminars for us, that gave it integrity as well, because all of a sudden you've got, big names saying, actually, we support this and we're behind this. So, that added to the weight of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So, from seeing the things that have been going out on your social media feed, I believe that you yourself are involved in a fundraiser at the moment.
I am, yeah. I'm losing weight. It was something I we get older, we put on weight, we get...
Yep, we do.
We get complacent with life. So I reached a point, and I was just like, do you know what? I've become a very large man, and I need to do something about it. And obviously, Tony's got his battle at the moment.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, actually, let's tie the two together. One, if we raise some money, it'll help him with whatever he wants to do with it. And two, it will give me the motivation to avoid kebabs and donuts. So, it was a win-win, really. So yeah, I'm doing a weigh-in on Saturday at Kaizen, actually. Yeah. See if I've lost the stone.
Yeah. So by the time this goes out, that will actually be tomorrow.
Right. Okay. So tomorrow, I'm weighing in tomorrow, and hopefully I've lost the stone.
Fantastic.
Which is from the Martial Arts Awards back in May.
Yeah.
That's when I made this decision to do it. So yeah. It's good though. I'm enjoying it though. It's funny. I do miss chocolate bars and things, but actually eating healthy is pretty good.
It is. Yeah. It is. I've found in the past when I'm one of these people. I've kind of got like that Marty McFly syndrome. The whole thing.
Yeah.
Where did you cut me? Yeah. If somebody tells me I can't do it, it just. It just. Oh, I've said it on this now. Everyone's going to be doing it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know what it is. Like somebody, I remember I was in a class and I'd said something about, oh well, if I just wanted to stop drinking coffee and eating chocolate, I'd just stop. And they were like, and someone went, oh no, you can't. It's not as easy as that. I went, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then so I did. Oh my goodness. But I get what you mean. It was the first few days was a nightmare. But once I kind of got into the routine of don't pick up the chocolate, don't pick up coffee, and then I started enjoying it. So it's bizarre, isn't it?
It is, and I feel better. I've got more energy, I've got more stuff, and which it just helps, doesn't it? It just But it's all good. It's all good.
So the weigh in on Saturday. It's a little bit. It's a little bit late in the day, probably. But hey, you don't know who's listed and who might get involved. Can people still get involved with the fundraiser? Yeah.
There's Just Giving page. You can find it on my Facebook page. I've shared it. Lots of people have shared it. I set out to raise £500 for him, which I think I was looking this morning, we're at £288 on the page, but then I've got a few businesses that have promised me they're going to match me for pound. So Spartan Martial Arts and Mask Training, they've promised me that.
They deserve a plug on that basis.
Yeah. Well, it's a little plug in it.
It's all good.
They've promised me that. So actually, I think we've pretty much done the 500.
Fantastic.
So anything more now is just a bonus, really.
Absolutely.
So, but we'll keep going. So the plan is to lose sort of 4.5, 5 stone by the next awards, which is November, I do believe. So
wow.
So I'm going to keep plodding along on it.
Absolutely. You're going to keep people. I noticed you doing some live video feeds as well. Are you going to keep that up as well?
Yeah. Just because I don't normally do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the sort of adaptive page, I try not to personalise it because it's not about me.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, it was a bit to go to the gym and to actually do this, and I think it helps motivate me doing those videos because I know that it's out there. Then I can't just hide away and go, well, yeah, it didn't really happen, and forget about it. But if I keep saying to people, you know, I'm doing this, then I have to keep doing it. So it's good.
It's fantastic. So, do you have anything coming up? Anything you'd like to share with the audience? Any events or plans for the future?
The future. Well, you know, we're rolling. You know, we've been rolling out our cornerstones, which are people who have, you know, it's kind of started off with people who have been integral to the association growing and becoming stronger, and you know, just and their help, you know, in making. So that's rolling out. We've got Pat O'Keefe coming to do a seminar on the 23rd in Cambridge, which will be great because we haven't seen each other in a long time, and it's really cool to get back in touch with him and do stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of a little personal one for me as well. So that was good. Then what else have we got? We go. You know, there's groups of us. Obviously, you've met our Carl, who goes everywhere. Who's, you know, I think he's more famous even than the Pillage, maybe. But we're going up to the Scott Caldwell Memorial Seminar up at Russell Jarmis's in July. There'll be three of us going up there. Just trying to get out there and see people and do things, and you know, to actually go, you know, what, we're here. Yeah, this is us. Yeah. If anybody wants to get in touch, that's brilliant. Brilliant. If any people who do podcasts or anything want to have a chat, that's good. But obviously, you know, I've done this one first, so you're the winner, Chris. You're the winner.
I am the winner.
Anybody, Chris, who wants to do a seminar, who wants to get booked up, you know, if you, Chris, if you wanted to do a seminar, absolutely, you could get in touch and we'll make that happen.
We will make it happen.
It's all good. You know, we're just really. I love the momentum that it's gained in the last sort of year, 6 months has been phenomenal. So let's just keep it going.
Good.
And you know, it is about instructors just opening the doors and giving it a whirl. And I'm always available. As I said earlier, I haven't got all the answers, but I probably know a man who has got an answer.
Yeah.
For you. So if any instructors think, oh, I'd like to do that, but I'm a bit nervous or I'm a bit, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing, then my advice is jump in, do it, and give us a shout.
Yep. It all starts with a message or a phone call, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
I'm hoping that this will just give things another little push for you in the right direction.
You know, that's brilliant.
Absolutely. And we will work out that workshop, and then when we've got some details, I can let everybody know on here. And,
absolutely.
Get everybody involved and help raise some awareness. It's fantastic. Great
Thanks,
stuff.
Chris.
Well, all the best with your. I mean, I'm actually going to be there. But all the best with your weigh-in on
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes, we'll say tomorrow. I'll share the news with everybody next week in our news section as to how things.
Brilliant, thank you, mate. That's great.
Thanks very much for your time, and
thank you for letting me spout along for a little bit.
Not a problem, sir. It's all good.
You're listening to Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast, brought to you by www.onlinekicking.co.uk.
So a big thanks to Neil for coming on the show today to tell us a little bit about his work and his involvement with the Adaptive Martial Arts UK and Ireland Association. And as I'm sure you'll all agree, it's a fantastic sounding group. And again, I really do encourage people to go along and have a look. Go through the videos and pictures, get in touch, see if there are ways that you can get involved, either with your club or if you're a student, maybe bringing getting your instructor involved or your fellow students involved in events that they have going on, just to help raise awareness and to bring forward that little bit more that inclusion that lots of us are striving for within the martial arts. So as Neil actually mentioned, this coming Saturday we have the Kaizen show in Nottingham, where I'm going to be teaching alongside a breadth of martial arts knowledge and some fantastic instructors. I do quite honestly have to pinch myself sometimes. I've seen my name listed alongside some of the legends that are going to be there. It's really, really cool, really cool. So if you're interested in coming along at the weekend, you can obviously get in touch with me. You can get me on Facebook or through the martialartspodcast.co.uk. If you drop me a message through there, then I can send you some more information about when and where exactly I will be teaching. So what else have we got going on at the minute? Well, I've spoken a little bit about in the past when I've been involved with film and TV work and stuff like that, and it's something I've been pursuing and looking for ways to get back into. And the really cool thing about getting this podcast up is that it has enabled me to get in touch with people, or so to say, it's prompted me to get in touch with people that I've worked with in the past, and I've got a few things going on, which is really cool. So I hope to be able to share that information, and also the experience of getting back into this work again after a little bit of time out. I've done little bits here and there, but not on a regular basis, and obviously my aim now is to try and sort of, I suppose, reinvent myself a little bit, given that when I started out I was in my early 20s and now I'm nearly 40, it's a different point in life. So sort of reinventing myself and getting back into the work regularly is something that I would really, really like to achieve within the next 2 years. So yeah, I will share that journey with you all and bring you on board. If you are going to be at the Kaizen show this weekend, I know I've just spoken about this, but if you come and find me, grab a photo. Would be really cool to get some photos of me with people that listen to the show, so we can add them to the Facebook group. And it'd be really cool as well to get a few sound bites from people, some quick interviews on the spot. I'm just trying to work out the best method of doing that at the moment. I hopefully have that all. Well, no, I will have that all ready for the weekend, so we can grab a few sound bites with people to feature in later shows. As I mentioned on the Facebook group as well, we're now going to be having a question of the week. So if you have a question that you want to put to me, please do submit it either through the website or through the Facebook group so that I can build up that stockpile of questions. And the more the better, really. On any subject related to martial arts. It can be a challenging one, it can be a simple one, it can be one somebody's asked 1,000 times before. I can try and give my spin on it. But no, the more questions, the better. Thank you all again for your support, and I will speak to you all next week. Goodbye.
Enjoy our podcast? Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review Kickback with Chris on iTunes today.